1 year ago, Hamza was making more than 200k per month with his online program, and he also had over 2 million subscribers with a loyal cult-like following that would do anything that he said. But fast forward to today, and now he's making less than 50k a month. He's left his main channel with 2 million subscribers, and he's lost most of his audience. And well, today I want to explain exactly how this happened so that you can avoid this as a personal brand, as a content creator, or as somebody looking to sell high ticket online. But who am I to talk? Well, I was actually inside of his private community as this whole downfall started happening, so I got to see it firsthand. I've also spent the last week looking over how it exactly happened, breaking it down and creating some steps that you can follow to avoid this same thing happening to you. So in today's video, I'll explain exactly how he built his loyal cult-like audience in the first place, then the problem that he faced and the problem that led to him losing all of this audience, and then how you can avoid this in 2 simple key steps. And so if that sounds good, stick around to the end of the video because you won't want to miss this. With that being said, let's jump straight into the computer. Start by looking at Hamza's origin. How did he actually begin? How did he grow this huge cult-like following? Well, in the early days, he started out with complete, raw, authentic self-improvement content. And he basically just made videos about whatever he wanted to make them about. And over time, as he posted every single day, he worked on his editing, his titles, and improved his skill at YouTube. He managed to grow and start making a lot of progress. And this led to him beginning to invest in thumbnails and editors. And he started to keep evolving and evolving until he was uploading hyper-edited videos every single day for like over a year. It was insane growth, and it was estimated that he would end up reaching over 10 million subscribers within the next few years. He was one of the fastest growing YouTubers thanks to this, and this all came down to his unique mechanisms. He used his raw, authentic personality, his emotional and relatable storytelling, as well as his passion and polarization, the unique things about him that nobody else could copy. And this allowed him to grow insanely fast. And it all comes down to these unique mechanisms, these unique things that help somebody stand out. And because he shared these really authentic stories that people could relate to, people began to trust him, and he started to sell online courses, which he then started to monetize. And he just connected with his ICP, with his customer profile, the people that he wanted to serve, at such a deep emotional level. And he did this by knowing literally everything about them. He knew their pains, their problems, their fears, desires, suspicions, beliefs, experiences, and stories. So by knowing everything about them, he was able to craft stories like the Jeffrey Adonis storyline that he had at the start of every video, as well as different polarizing views and different video ideas that would help serve that one specific ICP. And so he got to this point where he was uploading every single day, and he was making about 10 to 20k a month with online courses, but he wanted to scale further than that. And so as he started to scale his audience, he first expanded the TAM, which is just the total addressable market. For example, he started his Hamza Espanol channel, which allowed him to basically repurpose all his content to Spanish to reach even that market as well. This allowed him to obviously gain more views, gain more eyeballs, and then he also started uploading on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. He basically had his content repurposed everywhere, and he achieved a state of omnipresence. You'd go on Instagram and you'd see his videos there popping off. You would go on YouTube, you see his videos popping off. You'd go on Twitter, you'd see his posts popping off. Basically everything he was doing was popping off at the time. He was one of the fastest growing faces in the self-improvement space. And this allowed him to grow absolutely rapidly. You will see around here, he was at about maybe 100,000 subscribers. And then within like a year, he was at nearly 2 million. So he grew absolutely rapidly. But as you can see, he ended up getting stuck around here and has since plateaued, even going down. So why did this actually happen? Well, it all comes down to the scaling issue. Hamza was getting subscribers, he was getting eyeballs, he was getting views every day, and he was building one of the world's biggest cult-like audiences. But he was stuck at 20k a month, and he wasn't really profiting. He said this himself, that he was spending so much money on editors, thumbnail designers, that he wasn't really getting to where he wanted to go. He started to burn out, and eventually he quit, and he switched to low production, long value guides, which I can't actually show you because he deleted all his videos, but he switched to these kind of like 1 to 4 hour long guides where he just sit down and talk. And even though he made this big switch, he was still getting 2, 3, 4 million views on these videos and serving a lot of people. And as time went on, he decided to properly monetize this. So first he opened up Adonis School, which was his paid community, and then he opened up Adonis Gang, which was his free community. At first that was $5 a month, but then it did go to free. So this allowed him to create his first ever proper funnel from YouTube to free to Adonis School, which was a paid community. And he started trying to scale that past its original 20 to 50k a month. And even when he was changing his content a lot, he was going back and forth between Jeffrey Adonis, long value guides, business guides. He was constantly changing. He still managed to scale up to 200k a month and win the February school games, which is just like a competition where all these school owners compete to have the most new monthly revenue. And so he won the first ever one by far, like it was one of the biggest wins ever. And this was all thanks to his really good funnel, which was his Adonis Gang free one, which I'm actually banned from, and Adonis School. And this funnel allowed him to make 200k within 6 months of Adonis School starting. So what actually went wrong? How did he lose the majority of his audience and the majority of his revenue in such a little time? Well, the first factor was that his target audience was just so young that they couldn't afford the $129 a month fee. And I know this because I remember being inside of it back when I was broke and I could barely afford it. And I was in there for maybe 2 or 3 months until I was like, I can't afford to pay for it anymore. Even before this point, he had hit 2k members, and I remember because I was there. And then his churn started to really skyrocket. So the amount of people leaving his community like continuously increased every single month. And I feel like this happened purely because people would join for 1 month based on these little promotions that you do inside Adonis Gang. But because they were so broke, they were young kids, they couldn't afford to stay because it was quite a significant amount every single month. And so Hamza attempted to fix this churn through what I call the Kirbyfication. Now, I'm not saying that this is anything wrong with Andrew Kirby. Most of the time his advice works, and it's not just his advice. This comes from most kind of coaching gurus' advice. But the advice is to niche down and kind of help one specific person achieve one specific result. And we know that Kirby helped him do this because he says that, hey, he said that he helped him get to 200k a month. So this all comes down to Hamza attempting to change his ICP. So he no longer wanted to target this young self-improvement audience, but he tried to switch to business content and target this kind of older audience, this more mature audience that might be more qualified for his program. And this is where it all started to go downhill. See, first, he isolated his own audience by constantly throwing shade on them. I remember watching his videos, and yeah, they were helpful, but he'd constantly talk about the fact that his audience were too young, that he didn't really like them, that he thought they were immature, and he constantly said that they weren't really what he wanted, and that what he built wasn't what he wanted. And so by constantly isolating his audience and saying, I don't want any of you here, I only want this specific person, okay, yes, it did allow him to start getting more qualified people. That's what allowed him to grow to 200k a month originally, is by like pre-qualifying people and getting rid of the people that he didn't want. Well, then eventually just got worse and worse as he got rid of more and more of these people, as he niched down further and further and further to hyper-specific business coaching content. And in this process, he lost all of the original unique mechanisms that we talked about. All the unique mechanisms that built Hamza's original personal brand were gone within maybe 6 months. And it is all thanks to basically this big choice to niche down, hyper niche down, and do what I call Kirbyfication. And at the time, he was also being coached by William Brown, who obviously guided him to do the same thing. All of this was happening at the same time. And this is what caused his original scaling issue. He isolated his original audience so much that they could no longer keep up with the churn. He could no longer bring in enough new people that hadn't yet experienced it on his school. So his original audience became so isolated that he could no longer bring in enough new members to keep up with the constant churn of his audience that couldn't really afford the high price on Adonis School. And this caused him to panic. He was going back and forth. He was listening to this advice of the business gurus and coaching gurus that made him like niche down, and he started doing only coaching business. And this just lost so much trust and relatability with the whole point of his building his self-improvement cult and audience in the beginning, because they just didn't see the value in it anymore. They wanted self-improvement stuff. They wanted Jeffrey Adonis videos. A lot of them had grown up and wanted to invest in things, but some of them hadn't. And so this caused the original scaling issue that we were speaking about. And so how do you avoid this yourself? How do you stop this from happening as a creator or like an entrepreneur who's got a coaching business or info product, an agency owner? Because this is something that could probably happen to you, even with a small audience, even with less than 10,000 subscribers or followers, you could still have this happen to you. So you want to avoid the creator first strategy. So one thing that you'll notice that Hamza did is he became a content creator before he became an entrepreneur. He posted hyper-edited content. He was trying to get as many views as possible every single day. And whilst it is good to build kind of like a cult-like audience, it's not good to monetize that audience. And obviously, if he'd have continued going on, he would have maybe built up to like over 10 million subscribers, and then he may be in a much better position to monetize and still be able to keep up with the churn and still be in a really, really good position. But because he stopped where he was, he stopped growing it, he stopped trying to find new ways to monetize, he was just a basic broke content creator. He was losing money every single month. So instead, you should become what's called a creatorpreneur. This is where you combine the ideas of content creation and entrepreneurship to make sure that your content is purposeful. You're focusing on one ICP, one ideal customer, and making content for that person. And really, really importantly, you want to make sure the person that you are targeting has the purchasing power to be able to afford what you're charging. If you're charging super high ticket, going for 16-year-old kids, probably not going to sell that much. But the same thing goes for if you're selling a $40 a month program, then you may be able to sell to self-improvement people. You may be able to sell to 16-year-old kids because they can probably afford anywhere from $20 to $40 a month. I mean, they have subscriptions like Spotify and Netflix and all them. And then one other really huge learning lesson from this for me was avoid self-improvement. Now, I used to have my own self-improvement channel, and everyone was telling me that you don't really need subscribers to grow. And so I stopped focusing on getting subscribers, and I started focusing on trying to grow and monetize the 1,000 subscribers I already had. And it wasn't working. And this is because self-improvement content builds such a broad audience. It builds an audience that is obviously quite young, can't afford things, and never really wants to take action. So what you really want to do is niche down and become a specific person with a specific outcome with your offer. So for example, I've helped people do this with productivity and mindset. Instead of being self-improvement, you're the mindset, you're the productivity person, you're somebody else other than just the normal self-improvement person. The second thing that you need to use to avoid this trap that Hamza fell into is called the two-channel method. Now, this would have been the most simplest way for Hamza to do it. And you can see this happening all the time now with content creators that are a little bit smarter with their strategy. Firstly, you've got Charlie Morgan, who you can see grew to 190k subs, but one problem he noticed was that he was getting a really, really broad audience with his business content, right? And so even though it was good, high quality business content and most people were qualified, instead of doing what Hamza did and saying this is only for a certain person now, it's not for the original audience that I've built up that like me, he made a second channel. And as you can see, this one's just videos about business and stuff. This one's videos for agency owners, coaches, and consultants. And it's much more high level stuff like how to hire appointment setters or how to make money with cold email. So this change really helped him to continue to grow Imperial Acquisition. And we can look at the same thing happening with one of the smartest personal branders out there, Iman Gadzi. He started to find that he was making all this good content, getting lots of views, and he was building all these different channels and different brands and software companies and eyewear companies, but he wanted to start helping more high-level people. And so he started a brand new channel. And this time he was selling a new program called 8-Figure License. And as you can see, he's made much more niche down things with only 15k subscribers, but they're for a specific person. If you go on, then they're talking about hiring lots of people and systems and myths about info products. This is what allowed him to speak to, instead of this young audience who don't know how to make money, to the people that have already made lots of money and want to continue scaling. So you should have multiple channels if you want multiple ICPs. If you want to serve multiple different customers, then have a different channel to do that. Each channel should cater one specific customer profile. So if you want to have a broad one on self-improvement and then a niche one on business, go for that. If you want to have a broad one on making money online and a niche one on the SMMA business model, go for that. If you want to have a broad one on coaching in general and then a niche one on maybe how to grow in school, you should also go for that. And this exact strategy has worked for so many people. Build authority and presence first with this broad channel, and then serve and qualify with a small hyper-specific channel. You have to kind of think about what the intentions are behind your content. Do you want to focus purely on growing your content and getting views, building a personal brand, which you would do with maybe a broader channel like this, right? This is where you would build your personal brand. Whereas if you want to go with a hyper-specific channel, you may get less views and followers, you may be less well-known, but you may make more money. And that is a terrible dollar sign. You may make more money. And so Hamza could have avoided this scaling problem himself simply by keeping the main channel with the edited videos attracting young men, completely doing that all the time. And by now, I would estimate that he'd be on between 5 to 15 million subscribers. He'd have one of the biggest self-improvement brands in the world, and then he could start expanding out from there. Secondly, he could have created a channel where he makes guides on how he's growing this audience and how he's made money with his audience. This way, he could have his own separate channel to serve the more mature, qualified people that he originally wanted. Then he could have lowered the price of it on his school to make it more entry level. So instead of being something like $129 a month, which people really can't afford consistently for many years, they can't afford to stay there for 12 months. They can only maybe afford to come in for 1 or 2 months. And that's why his churn rate was so high. You could have maybe lowered it to about $59 a month, or somewhere around that mark, $59, $69, $79 a month, right? And this would have allowed so many more people to come in. If he made be half the price, he might have been able to get like 50% more people than he already had. Now, this just comes down to basic unit economics, and you'd have to look at the supply and demand curve for this to figure out whether it would actually work out. But my guess is that it would, because I was there and I know that if a Donny school was like $50 and still as value packed, I would have been there. And so many more people that I knew would have also still been there. And then what he could have simply done is opened a high ticket offer to work with those mature people and help them grow social medias and coaching businesses. He could have maybe made it $990 a month, or he could have made it like a $5,000 one-time fee. This would have allowed him to actually build a proper high ticket offer. And if he was charging anywhere above 5K for this offer with a hyper niched audience, then he could be adding anywhere from like 100 to 500K a month to his business right now. So you can see quite a lot of the mistakes that he's made along the way, as much as he's great and he's done a lot of good things. And so alongside this, the main things that he needed to do was keep his unique mechanisms. This is what grows a brand. If you have something that makes you unique, you must stick to that. That is something that you must always do. You must evolve as well, but you must always keep it down to your core principles and serve the core audience that you have. Then you could have kept this huge and rapidly growing audience. This would have allowed him to build a brand so far greater than just YouTube and making money online. Something that would have allowed him to do what Iman Gadzhi's currently doing, which is like then opening a channel where you do day in the lives, and then opening like a eyewear company or a clothing company. Then he could have made a channel on like hyper niche thing where he's helping with business owners. He could have just become this omnipresent figure that had a huge personal brand. As well as this, he could have added over 100K per month in revenue. And I strongly believe that he could be making anywhere from 500 to 1 million a month right now if he'd have continued with his main channel and also continued with making like a high ticket offer for his specific business audience, his more mature audience. And then the main program would have been so like low maintenance and probably would have stayed above 100K a month. That's simply how it would have worked, and it would have helped him a lot more to maintain everything and maintain that audience. And then eventually you could get to a point where he's like, okay, I don't like this immature audience. I've built this second audience on this second channel that's working better. I can close it on his school and also then open up something like a more advanced program for those that want to join and take everyone over to the other channel eventually later down the line when he has that crazy social proof in that space. And so really that summarizes everything. If you do want to learn more about how to become a creatorpreneur, then you can join our free school community. It will be the first link in the description. It's a hub for educational creators and infopreneurs to meet, network, and share the journey that we're going on, and also learn from others. So if that's something that would suit you, if you want to learn how you can become a creatorpreneur, then just click the first link in the description and I will see you there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.